Hey YouTube, it is League Turnover today. If you want to remain in the Great League at 1500 CP League, you need to play Fossil Cup, which only has 3 typings, so the meta is a little more limited. If you have flexibility in Pokemon and resources, I think the Ultra League is way more flexible. And you can just kind of see, just based on the top 20 here, you have a variety of Pokemon that are usable. So let's go over some of them. Some of them are we've seen since season 1, like Giratina still being in the top 20 here. That's been a top Pokemon forever. Whereas we have a new number 1 Pokemon, Bellybolt. And when you see an electric Pokemon at number 1, there is you have to question, when is Parabolic Charge going to be nerfed? Is it going to be nerfed right back next season? Parabolic Charge on Dedenne, where you boost your defense 2-3 times, becomes overpowerful. And now we have a number 1 Pokemon in the Ultra League in Bellybolt. Now it has Sucker Punch, Parabolic Charge, and Zap Cannon. So you have a Nuke and Zap Cannon. You have Sucker Punch, which is one of the better fast moves in the game. And this Parabolic Charge that will just boost your defense. And Bellybolt is more defensive heavy than Dedenne to start with, even in the Great League equivalent. So having a bulkier Pokemon with a Sucker Punch, which hits pretty hard, where you can then boost your defense, can be get out of hand pretty quickly. So I think to beat this, you're gonna either have to run some sort of dark Pokemon to resist the Sucker Punches, or some sort of ground Pokemon or Dragon to resist the electric, or dark electric like Guzzlord will be able to resist both Sucker Punch and Parabolic Charge. So something like that. Then you go into Lapras. Lapras is just going to be safe rates. We know how strong Psywave is and how strong Sparkling Aria is and how quick it is to get to. So it's just a very flexible, spammy Pokemon that has coverage with your Ice Beam. Corviknight. Corviknight is up here. Again, you're not seeing XLs beside the name. I think it's just a visual glitch on PVPoke. Bellybolt, Lapras are XLs, barely though, level 42. Corviknight is very much an XL. Level 50. So you're probably going to need XLs for almost every single one of these Pokemon. For Alligator, probably not. Giratina, no, but it is a legendary. The rest of them probably need XLs. So Corviknight, it gets by on its Steel Flying typing, just be able to resist a ton. Answers to ground Pokemon and Pokemon that can't hit Steel and a few other things, right? So I think Corviknight is a strong Pokemon, which is where you get to Fortress. Fortress, we again, number 5, I think it's overranked in the Ultra League. The Great League at number 2. Number 5 here, you're gonna see less things that resist in this meta. So in the Great League, there's 7 things that resist Bug. And there's a lot of the things that resist Bug in the Great League. For example, Ghost. There's a crap ton of Ghosts. Not that there's not a lot of Ghosts in Ultra League, as you can see on the list, but there's a ton of Ghosts in the Great League. There's a ton of I was gonna say fighters. There's not a ton of fighters. What else was it? Fairy. Fairy is the other one that you're not gonna see a ton of here. You see a couple on the list, but you're not gonna see a ton of fairies like you see the Charmers and stuff in the Great League. So maybe Bug Bite has a little more play in the Ultra League, and you do have enough coverage, and you got some bulk already in the Great League, so that'll transfer to the Ultra League. So I think Fortress may have more play in the Ultra League. But Ghosts, there is Dusknoir. Dusknoir is a hard-hitting user with Astonish and Shadow Punch, Dynamic Punch, but mostly used Wish Shields in the Great League. I don't know how it plays in the Ultra League. I don't think I've ever played it in the Ultra League. Obviously, you'll be able to take at least one move in the Ultra League, which you sometimes cannot do in the Great League, which could make it a little more flexible in the Ultra League. Moltres with Fly plays a lot better. I did not have time to showcase it this week, but I did test my Moltres with Fly, and it plays significantly better. So in a meta that is already kind of limited with Flyers because of the Wing Attack nerf a few seasons ago, having Galarian Moltres with Stab, Sucker Punch, and then Stab, Fly, and Braybird, very, very strong Pokemon. And then you're getting a lot of other Pokemon that have just been strong or in the past or have been buffed. Grumpig, Psywave, buffed. We know how strong Psywave is with Dynamic Punch, Shadow Ball. For Alligator has been top meta since it got the Shadow Claw move with Hydro Cannon. Giratina has been a top Dragon Ghost Ultra League Pokemon since Season 1. Galiscapod got Fury Cutter, so it's buffed. Tentacruel gets Acid, so it's buffed. Primeape, once it got Karate Chop Rage Fist, has become a top 20 meta. Jellicent has been a top meta since it basically came into GBL, because Hex, Surf, Shadow Ball hasn't really changed. Some moves like Hex got buffed. Tinkaton sort of newer. as your fairy. It's in a meta that's kind of weak on fairies. You have Glaring Wheezing and Tinkatong. That's basically some of your main metas. Again, Charm doesn't translate to Ultra League as strong as it is in Great League. So, just have a couple fairy metas for your Darks and your Dragons like Giratina and stuff is positive. Credilli, Acid Spray, Malamar, Shadow version with Psywave. So this is the problem if you have not been playing GBL for a long time. When Niantic, it's going to be Scopely moving forward, but when Niantic always did the move updates, they did the move updates with only one thing in mind, and that is the Great League. Anything else is a sort of residual secondary effect that happens to it in the Ultra League and Master League and even other Pokemon. So let me give you some examples. In the past, they have directly attacked Sky Attack and Wing Attack to try to nerf Noctowl in the Great League when it was the ultimate meta Pokemon. They have nerfed Counter because Metacham was the ultimate user in the Great League. So they attack these certain moves and buff certain moves to try to switch the Great League meta around, because that's the thing that people play the most, and that's the thing that is the Play Pokemon Championship. It's a Great League, right? So they don't really think about what happens to the Ultra League and Master League, and for the most part, what you see is a lot of Pokemon that are just always going to be meta because they have certain moves or typings or bulk that plays well in the Ultra, and then you're going to see a bunch of these other Pokemon that just rise up because of the buffs, right? So, like I said, Feraligatr wasn't a top meta, but it had Shadow Claw for a few seasons now, so it's been top. Jellicent has been top since it came out. Giratina has been top since it came out. But look at everything else on the list. It has been buffs in the past few seasons. Parabolic Charge on Bellibolt, Psywave on Lapras. Corviknight came into the game, so Corviknight's sort of newer, just has that bulk stat with it. Fortress with the Bug Bite buff. Dusknoir with the Astonish buff. Grumpig getting Psywave. Or the Psywave or Psywave buff, I forget which one it was. Golisopod getting Fury Cutter now. Tentacruel getting Acid. Tentacruel was always kind of a top 30 to 40 ranked Pokemon in the Ultra League anyways, because that Scald Blizzard was great, but Poison Jab was a little slower than Acid is, so Acid getting to these moves quicker. Primate with the Rage Fist. And then Credilli now with Acid going to number 19, and then Malamar again, just having now the Shadow version playing better. So they don't really think of like what's going to happen with the Ultra League meta when we do this stuff. They just kind of put it out there. But I think this meta is varied enough. And I think what the Ultra League has that the Great League doesn't have as many of is just safe Pokemon. When I was using, I just kind of use PVPoke as a like, okay, what makes sense with a lot of these teammates? And the amount of times that Lapras, Dusknoir, Grumpig, Feraligatr, Giratina, Golisopod, Jellicent came up as suggested teammates. It's just like those Pokemon, and that's why they're all in the top 20, are so safe in this meta. And it's just a mixture of you're most of the time not going to get one shot with a lot of these moves. So you can at least get a couple moves off. So then it comes down to your moveset, your spamminess, and stuff like that, which a lot of these Pokemon either have the bulk or the moveset or both to kind of deal with that, right? So, did you truly just pick the top 3 Pokemon? Not by doing it on purpose. It was basically Bellibolt is going to have problems with ground Pokemon where your Parabolic Charge is resisted. So what beats ground Pokemon? A couple things. One is flying, and the second is water. So you have your water Pokemon in Lapras as your safe swap, and you have Corviknight in your flyer that will deal with the ground. So it's a very balanced team. You can see just Bellibolt's Sims here. A lot of wins here, even against like Giratina. I guess you have Sucker Punch. This is why it actually Bellibolt may be a little scary. If it just had something like Thundershock, kind of like how Dedenne goes, I don't think it would be ranked as high. But having Sucker Punch, which is such a hard-hitting move, being able to do those hard-hitting moves and then boost your defense like 2 times could make this thing get out of control, which is why you will beat Giratina Altered when you do not have a charge move to throw Giratina Altered, because you have that super effective Sucker Punch. You just buff your defense up a couple times and then you just out Sucker Punch your way through. So that's why Bellibolt's going to be very scary here. That's why Dedenne can be kind of tricky in the Great League, where yes, it's Glacier, but if you get off a couple of Parabolic Charges, which 2 of them take out a lot of the Pokemon in the Great League, and then you're landing and then you're buffing your defense a couple times, I can see Parabolic Charge seems like one of those moves that is probably going to be nerfed next season, where you move that 100% chance down to like 50% chance at best, is my guess for next season. But for now, if you got a Belly Bolt, you got a Dedenne, ride them in the Great League and the Ultra League here. And then, yeah, like Lapras should be safe. Corviknight's got some play too. Even against like one of your weaknesses as Electric and Fire, and you have the Sand attack, which hits your fast move, hits super effective against both. So it's not like you're absolutely in trouble no matter what. So I think that it has a lot of play. Galarian Moltres, Steelix, and Giratina. So start with Galarian Moltres. I know it's better. I know Fly plays a lot better on this Pokemon. It has the Stab Sucker Punch. So when we just saw how strong Belly Bolt is with a non-Stab Sucker Punch, having a Stab Sucker Punch with Flying Brave Bird gives you, again, a ton of coverage. Ting-Tong is the biggest one you can see there that you have no move for because both are resisted. Put in Giratina and I put in Steelix. Both are incredibly bulky and both are incredibly safe. So you can, depending on what you see here, weak to Electric, both are ground and dragon, so you resist Electric. Double weak to Ice, but you can kind of work through that. Yeah, so just very bulky Pokemon, very safe Pokemon in the back. You can kind of safe swap. And you're going to see that as a theme here. I think it's team number 3, where it's just, I felt like all safe Pokemon. Yeah, exactly. This is the one where it's just Primeape, Credilli, and Dusknoir. And what I mentioned again, like a lot of times when I was like, what does this pair with? Dusknoir and a couple other Pokemon were some of the top Pokemon's named. And you can just look at Dusknoir. Again, that Astonish does a lot of raw damage. And where Astonish is going to be resisted on normal typing and dark typing, you have a super effective Dynamic Punch. And so those are the Pokemon that you are fantastic again. And that's why Belly Bolt's so strong, right? Because like, where's the Electric going to be resisted against like Dragons and Grounds, where you at least have the Sucker Punch here? It's the same sort of thing with Dusknoir. You have like the Astonish Astonish, which will be resisted on darks and normal typings, where you have the super effective Dynamic Punch, which is why you do not see a lot of hard losses here, because you should have enough flexibility for the majority of Pokemon and you're spamming enough to deal with that. So, I still want to cover some of those problems you may have. Bulkier Pokemon, Pokemon that will pace you, ghosts and stuff like that will hit super effective against you, or ghost type moves. You can see for Alligator because the claws are going to add up. So went with Primeape to deal with darks, in particular darks and normal. Those are going to cause you have Dynamic Punch, but those are going to cause you problems. So went with Primeape to deal with the darks and normals, and then I used Credilli as a safe swap. Credilli does seem to have some more problems in this meta, especially with the Acid. Acid plays differently. I have not played it yet in the Great League with Acid, but I have played Dragology and I've played Toxtricity with Acid, so I understand how it plays. And it will play different. With Credilli, you'll do more damage with your fast move, but it's slower to get to the charge moves. And one of the things with Credilli, which was always strong, is the Rock Tomb, which will lower the opponent's attack. So you just kind of have to outweigh if you're going to play with this Pokemon, which one you want to use. I know people are using both, so it's just up to you. And again, this is another perfect example of 3 Pokemon. Yes, they're going to have some, like Grumpig is Psychic, so you're going to lose to a Dark type Pokemon, or Psywave is double resisted. That makes sense. But outside of that, look at the safety you have in these 3 Pokemon. Grumpig for Alligator, Cobalion. Just some losses, a lot of wins, safe, spammy Pokemon, hard-hitting Pokemon with their charge moves. The fast moves, Psywave and Shadow Claw, are really add up on Grumpig and for Alligator. So just 3 Pokemon that can just have enough flexibility in this meta to, put shield pressure on and have some coverage moves as well. So this is what I'm talking about. This meta in the Ultra League is way, way, way more open than, I think, the Great League for starters, but not only the Great League, but the Fossil Cup that is on this week as well. Golisopod, Tinkaton, Runerigus. So I went to Golisopod, and it was recommended as a safe swap most of the time. So take the amount of losses here with a grain of salt. You obviously will win more with shield advantage, energy advantage, in the 2 shield matchup when you spam potentially more. So Golisopod in the even shield with 1 energy is not the way you would normally play Golisopod, right? So you can use that as a safe swap. I did use it as a safe swap with Tinkaton and Runerigus. Runerigus is a Ghost Dark, so I'm going to have some problems with, it's a Ghost Ground, so it's going to have problems with darks and stuff. So Tinkatong can do that. Golisopod. So if you want to actually know the order, Golisopod should be in the middle here and Tinkatong on the lead. Or Runarigus on the lead. You can use either on the lead. Golisopod should be the safe swap on this team though. Although I have not tried Runarigus as a safe swap. It seems to have a little more flexibility than it did in the past. So yeah, it's up to you how you want to play it. Dragonite, Jellicent. I just tried to repeat my Legend team. If you've been around on this channel for a while, you know that I've hit Legend in the Ultra League multiple times with a team that I always got like 300 to 400 elo with, and that was Dragonite, Jellicent, and Swampert. Dragonite lead, Jellicent is your safe swap, try and draw out of grass, and then Swampert swept in the back. This is when there was less. This is when the number one Pokemon was not an electric, because there was barely any electric Pokemon in the meta at the time, which is why it worked to run Jellicent as a safe swap. Maybe a little trickier here. But Jellicent, as you can still see in column 1 here, is still very, very, very safe. So it's another great safe swap in one of the many safe swaps you can use in this meta. But I would like to use Dragonite lead, where you can superpower and bail if you need to. Jellicent is a safe swap, and then for some coverage, having that flying steel coverage in Sandslash I think is very valuable. Obviously you need double weak to fire, double weak to fighting, need to cover those. So I have 2 answers for fighting, I have 2 answers for fire. Right, so if you're going to use Sandslash, though, these 2 are pretty good to build around to balance out your weaknesses. You're also weak to ground, which Dragonite will resist ground. So you got some answers there. And then I tried a couple other Pokemon. And again, I don't know if I'd use this team, but just to, if you have a Fortress or you have a Shadow Samurott, which is ranked very high and you want to see how it sims. Again, I don't think this is how you play Shadow Samurott, especially in the even energy 1 shield scenario. I think it can play as a safe swap like for Alligator. I'd probably still use for Alligator, especially in a meta where more things are weak to Ghost. You saw how many Ghosts there are, you saw how many Psychics there are. I just think Ghost is going to have a lot more play than Bug. So I perversely, even in the Great League, I would use for Alligator over Samurott. But if you have a Samurott and you want to use it, you can. I think it plays more as a safe swap as well. Weezing also plays as a safe swap. It's been a safe swap for a few seasons now, just with the spamminess, Fairy Wind, spamminess of these Brutal Swings, and now Sludge. Sludge is a nice hard-hitting moves, gives you coverage. And Fortress has jumped up to what, number 5 on the list. So I put it in. Again, I don't love using a Bug Bite Fortress. I think it's too slow to get to your charge moves. Maybe it plays a bit better in the Ultra League, but again, when your Rock Tombs take a combined 34 to get to 2, you're taking 3 Hydro Cannons and they're almost at their 4th by the time you're getting to your 2nd charge move. So I know Bug Bite adds up too, but you know, that's just my personal, I just personally don't like playing with it. But if you look at the sims, it says it does pretty well. So if you want to play with it, let me know how it goes. So again, Fossil Cup, 3 typings, this way open, but resource dependent, as you saw on this list. I don't think there is any Pokemon on this list that is not XL or not Legacy or Legendary. I think every Pokemon on this list is XL. The ones that aren't XL, like for Alligator, have your Legacy move in Hydro Cannon, or they are Legendary like Giratina's. Pretty much everything else is XL on this list, which makes it a huge resource issue. This is something that we've seen on this channel and other content creator channels where Ultra League and Master League just don't get the views, unfortunately, because people are not playing it. People would rather play. 2 things are going to happen. I think more people will play the Fossil Cup, even though it's a by far worse meta. 3 typing metas where there's going to be like 5 to 10 Pokemon that you're going to see on pretty much every single team. Or people are just going to take this week off. And that is unfortunately happens when we have the Ultra League with a very limited cup. But we will, I think we're going to combo this. I do want to try some of these Pokemon in the Ultra League. And we'll play some Great League Fossil Cup, because I know that's what most people will play. But let me know what you're playing below. That's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.